Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of the 2.5 Salesman podcast. I'm your host, Mario, together with my co-host, Giulio. We welcome you to a podcast where we talk all things sales, completely raw, uncut, and sometimes we do use swear words, right, Giulio?
I mean, there's nothing wrong with the swear words. I can't believe we already done 3 episodes. Oh my God, the poor listeners, Jesus.
All of you who are sticking with us, thank you for listening, and all of you newcomers, welcome. We are a little bit rough, but we promise to be even worse when it comes to using swear words in the future.
We're a rough undiscovered gem, right?
Rough and undiscovered gem is right on, my man. All right, so in today's episode, as you've probably seen in the description, we are talking about how to leverage social media in B2B sales. I mean, this is a huge topic, and we will just kind of scratch the surface a little bit today, because there are so many moving parts that we can use and reuse and talk about. But maybe let's begin with the obvious one, right? So we can, and obviously, since we're talking B2B sales, right? I say LinkedIn. That would be maybe yeah. So then we have like two big topics. That is like company branding. So we can talk about it from the angle of companies, and then personal branding.
Of course. I think we're touching. Actually, it's a good debate, because I think until maybe like 3-4 years ago, it was all about company branding, right? And I think now on LinkedIn you see so much talk about personal branding. I think it's definitely changed the game. I mean, even me and you obviously were constantly posting and building our own brand, right?
Yeah, I mean for sure. And again, our reasons are our own, right? And maybe if any of you are either in Berlin or I always forget what city you are.
In Prague.
You are in Prague?
Prague, Italy, depends where I
Yeah,
go.
well,
right?
let's say if you're in Berlin or Prague, just hit us up and we'll go for a beer. And then we can talk about maybe our reasons of why are we doing the things that we are doing on LinkedIn. But right now, let's a little bit touch on let's highlight some of the differences. So again, we are talking about B2B sales, right? So let's maybe a little differences on how would you run a company account versus how would you run your personal account, right?
I mean, first of all, I think that the easiest way to get popularity on your company account is actually to have your people post all the time. If you want to see a very good example of this that's done beautifully, it's Sales Loft. And Sales Loft, I know because I follow quite a lot of the other guys. I know some of them personally. What they do is as soon as you join, basically you were like, you're going to post every day on LinkedIn. Right? And some of them became like really good influencers. You've probably seen one of them, Tom Boston, right? Is a bold, funny guy that's talking about sales humor all the time. And he's a complete master of the personal branding. And if you got good individuals with personal brand posting relevant content to the industry, then you also attract traffic to the company page, right? At least that would be the very first thing I would ever look at is get it from the employees so you can have it easier on the company part as well, basically.
I do remember one. He's very. He did work in Sales Loft. He was, I think, VP of Revenue, but then he moved on to become a VC. I'll remember his name. He was always. He begins every post with "Hey, salespeople."
Okay.
And he puts Jason Donovan or Jonathan Donovan, something like that. I'll probably remember by the end of our taping, but he does an excellent job of not only personal branding, but kind of incorporating his own tone in his branding with whatever Sales Loft was doing, because he's no longer with Sales Loft at this specific point in time.
Actually, what you're saying is kind of ties into the worry of companies, right? I think companies don't put so much effort on the employee's personal brand because they think, well, if this person leaves, I lose that part of the brand, right? And instead they should be thinking, well, okay, but while this person is here, it's contributing to my brand as well, which is, it's a bit like the old saying, what happens if we train them and they leave? Well, what happens if we don't train them and they stay, right?
Oh yeah. So it's Jeremy Donovan. I remember it. Jeremy Donovan. If you're not following, be sure to follow. Shout out to Jeremy. If you're listening to this, love your content. You are awesome, man. But it's so one of the thing is the way you should, and this is again my opinion, and I come from we both come from the sales background, but in my opinion, it is very similar to like a digital handshake, right? Especially when you're running company account. It's companies, especially startups, just they're afraid not to offend anyone, not to offend their early adopters, and they post this very dry, boring content. And they're why are we not getting any traction on LinkedIn? I wonder why. Because your content sucks.
True. I mean, personally, I don't know if you ever watched the guy, but there's the CEO of Lemlist, Guillermo Bursch, and he's a big fan on personal branding. I took one of his courses, and he says the number one thing that matters in branding overall is authenticity, right? And I think that's what you're mentioning is a lot of companies are trying to produce content that's relevant to their industries. And I get it. Maybe you sell to finance or you sell to IT, but humans are humans, right? They relate to something human, not to some corporate crap.
It's about humanizing your brand.
Exactly.
That's the goal, man. I mean, it's not sounding like I had one of my CEOs from way back when I first started in the beginnings of my B2B sales, and I started writing emails, and he says, you sound like a IBM corporation. Like he even didn't say you sound like a person from IBM. He said, you just sound like IBM. Like you sound
that's
like,
not good.
That's not good, man. Like you sound like a robot. Because this is not how humans are. For me, so one of the best corporate accounts, and this is a B2C company, is Wendy's. Wendy's on Twitter.
I see sometimes they're funny comments like
whoever runs that account needs to get a raise as soon as possible. I mean, that's just fantastic.
There's I've seen a few good ones from Durex as well, the condoms, and they make some terrible jokes, and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe they're saying this.
Super cringeworthy. But for me, the lamer the joke, the better it actually is. Because they're not taking them too seriously. They are having fun. And in the end, I mean, that's like, if you're proud of what you're doing, and I would say, if you're not a scammer, every company is proud of what they're doing, right? Proud of the work, proud of your contribution to kind of maybe better humanity. And then you should show that passion on, especially in your corporate accounts, right? So I see a lot of companies just using their company accounts on LinkedIn just to be like a news board. Oh, we did this.
Oh yeah, we raised this much funding. Oh, we got a new client, and I'm like, well, yes, guys, well done.
Whenever I see that type of like that type of announcement or that type of post, I always remember. Do you remember the episode of Simpsons where in the news they have a guy who's been hiccuping for 40 years, and the camera kind of turns to him and he goes, "Kill me." Kill me, kill me, kill me.
I think I actually do remember that episode.
That's kind of that's my internal, let's say, monologue or dialogue with myself that I get when I see the like cringeworthy
I think like I was I recently also took a course from Justin Welsh, which is probably the king of personal branding, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And what he
He's
says is like
awesome.
the four posts, the four topics for posts that you should be looking at, right? They should be either entertaining, okay, which is what we were just mentioning.
Yeah.
Educating is another option,
Yeah.
or challenging,
Mm,
or then empathizing, right?
mm, mm.
And usually we get a lot of education,
Yeah.
a lot of
I am guilty of
unsolicited.
that.
Look, I do a lot of education as well. I mean, I'm a sales trainer, right? So I think that should be the core of what I do. But as a company brand, right? Like I'm talking like if you're running a company page and all you're trying to do is educating, then it sounds like you're a newspaper, right? Not a real brand, basically.
Yeah, yeah. And not the fun kind, the like the really serious kind, right? That's kind of I mean, when we dive into the personal branding side of things, like I had a lot of debates with I would say some of my peers who also do. So what should you do, right? So are you gonna do like the personal brand? Like I am, like my content on LinkedIn has nothing to do with the job or jobs that I did. Right. So I've been in completely different industries, but in the essence, I am a sales guy, right? And I love teaching sales, I love talking about sales. And you notice, and probably some of the listeners, I read a lot of books, like about 50 books every year. And this is the topic that I'm passionate about. So when it comes to like personal branding, do you talk about you and who you are, or you use that as a megaphone for advancing for whatever job you are currently in? Or a blend of two?
I would say probably neither, in the sense
Neither.
that
All right.
look, just the personal branding, again, if you're just using it to advance the job you're in, is not going to come across as authentic, right? Generally, because you're just using it for a specific situation, and just talking about you, that's just boring, right? I think I would say that personal branding is more about how can your opinion or how can what you do help others with, again, one of these four things we discussed: entertain them, empathize with them, challenge them, or educate them, right? And it's about what you can do for them. And then obviously, if you're an expert and you work for, again, Sales Loft, obviously sales engagement is going to be the topic you're going to talk about, and that's okay. And then it just comes as a background to it.
But what if like, again, like if you're a sales guy from Sales Loft, that's easy. Like you talk about sales engagement. Oh wow. No shit, Sherlock. But what if you're a sales guy and you sell heavy duty machinery? Or you're a sales guy and you sell let's say some kind of SaaS to medical, to hospitals. What then?
Well, I mean, look, you go and find what is it that your specific niche can relate to, right? So, for example, I sell specifically to the HR tax, right? That's my niche market, is HR tech company. And look, I don't talk that much about HR, but one of my most popular posts was when I compared talent acquisition versus HR, which is a thing that a lot of the people working in both fields feel relates to them, right? And it was just my opinion about what I felt it was like. And this basically created still some engagement. So I think your heavy machinery, they're still humans, right? What are the issues they're facing? What are they wants? How can you relate to them? And then you go for these four ideas, and then you just try to get them engaged. That's what I would say is the core.
And okay, so you kind of, at least from where I'm coming from, I think you make a really good point, and I will take a piece of it, and then let's expand a little bit. And that is like, what is valuable content, right? So okay, first of all, marketing 101, who's your audience? Like whatever you're pushing through your social media channels, Like obviously you and I with this podcast, we are catering to B2B salespeople, right? All sorts of salespeople, right? Fine. But when you're crunching out content, right? So who do you want this content to be read by? Like who's your audience? And then what kind of content are you producing? Is it valuable? Or as you said, it doesn't fall into the one of the or four categories. My best performing piece of content are always my personal stories. At least on LinkedIn, that performs better than any. I mean, my educational content when I talk about, hey, you should be maybe doing this, or this is, like just educating. Okay, but like personal ones, and then again, of course, memes, sales memes. This kind of goes directly to
I love your sales memes.
I found them really, really not just funny, but really relatable. I really my assistant Militz and I like spent a fair amount of time trying to figure them out. What would be I don't want to use the word trigger, right? That's the wrong word. But what would resonate? What hurts? Right? And then we kind of try to put that out just to, as you say, entertain people a little bit.
Well, I mean, look, Mar, there's something that you mentioned that I think it's very crucial, right? You talked about, your personal stories will resonate more or gets better, like let's say engagement. I think if you look at LinkedIn, the craziest thing is what are the posts that get the most engagement? Honestly, usually it's theory stories, okay? Or is I've been promoted. Like out of all my posts, the post that got the most engagement, which was like 10,000 impressions, was when I said I start my own business. What value is that adding to my audience?
Nothing.
Zero. I mean, someone might be inspired by it, but zero, right? So I think that the real point is that do we want the vanity? Do we want the engagement? Or do you want maybe less engagements, but from targeted people, right?
You use the magic word, man. You use the magic word, and that's vanity. We should definitely have like alarm bells going off when each of us, if any of us uses the word vanity. I spent 5 years of my life bleeding in the media industry, showing them that they were using vanity metrics. And we can touch a little bit about metrics in social media. I mean, that's a whole podcast. Anyway, but just to touch a little bit, people are trapped looking at vanity metrics, meaning metrics that make us feel good, but don't actually do anything.
Well, look, it's like, let's give a stupid example.
Yeah, of course.
How many followers you got on Instagram versus how many people bought from you on Instagram? Yeah. If you got 1,000 followers, but 10 clients is better than 100,000 followers and 0 clients, right?
Yeah. No, of course. I mean, you could, in that case, you can actually argue is it about conversion? Is it about, so what is it about, right? Yeah. But yeah, I completely agree. I mean, 100,000 impressions mean jack shit if none of the converts, because it's kind of good. My best performing post on LinkedIn all time is a meme, and it got about 1,000 reactions.
Wow.
Yeah. Just a few comments, and then it got, I think, 30 or 40,000 impressions. But it did nothing. It was just super funny. People were resharing it. People were taking screenshots, posting it, and then tagging me. And the best thing, I didn't even come up with that meme. I found it somewhere. Of course. I credited whoever did it. And it was like super. But in the end, it didn't do anything. So we are coming back to this.
Well, I mean, wait. There's and actually, again, when I bring up this Tom Boston, because he's a perfect guy for this, right? He only does sales humor, and he was an SDR for Sales Law. But his sales humor was so good that he got to the point that when he was talking to prospects, they'll be like, oh wow, I know you, I've seen your meme, right? So I think that
Yeah.
there is the further point here is maybe the biggest battle, sales versus marketing, right? Is sales closes the deal, right? Marketing is about creating the brand, the image, etc.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
point is, if you get a lot of impressions, you build familiarity. If you go
Mm.
familiarity, you're a step closer to trust. Once you have
I
the
didn't
trust, you can
say
close
I didn't
deals.
say it's not completely useless, right? I
No,
mean,
no,
you do
exactly.
need need impressions, but you do also need engagement, and you
Mhm.
need people who will click on that bell or
You
ring or
need
whatever.
conversion. You need conversion.
And then
Period.
in the
Like,
end, it's about conversions,
mhm.
right? It's about people loving your content all the time.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
I mean, that's in the end, that is that. So let's maybe touch a little bit of the topic since we did mention engagement.
Mhm.
Um, so engagement on company
Mhm.
posts
Mhm.
versus engagement on personal posts.
I mean, I think obviously the engagement on the company post, if they're good, it gets fed into a CRM, right? Like I know most CRMs will be like, you click like or you follow a company, immediately you get scraped and put into Salesforce, HubSpot, and someone is putting you into the cadence, and you're getting a call, you're getting an email immediately, right? Obviously, on the personal is a little bit different, but again, I think that the main crucial thing is about building familiarity, building trust,
Mm,
right? So the
mm.
more the engagement you get with, I mean, honestly, it's harder to get into the company page. This is statistically proven.
Oh
People
yeah,
prefer people than brands, so there's no
yeah.
doubt about that. But obviously, like as a company, you want to build the brand of the company because they will stay with you forever.
Mm. For sure. I mean, I've seen companies use any like and comment that comes to the company page to, as you say, scrape the data and then put them in a
Inbound
cadence.
leads, right?
That's not an inbound lead.
Well, anything counts these days, right?
Yeah, I think Beck Holland did a fantastic training. She did it. She did a webinar, I think, even maybe 2 years back, year and a half back, where she talked about that this is not actually inbound. And I would probably make a mistake, but it's either post bound or bridge bound. Some was when someone is reacting to your social media post. It's of weaker scoring, right?
Look,
If
it's
you go into scoring leads, this has like a very
yeah.
weak.
I mean, it's still better than outreach, than cold outreach, right? I mean, anything counts. I remember like one of my most recent clients, the guy just added me on LinkedIn for networking. I saw
Mm.
him, found his number, called him immediately, right? But then at that point, he's like, you just added me. I've got a much better way to have that conversation compared to like just
I
cold
do
calling
that.
him.
I do that as well. So when I add people that are in the industry where I'm currently working and they accept, the moment they accept, I give them a
You
call.
call them. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because at that point, there's already a familiarity built in that sense. But
Yeah. I mean, that's actually one of the triggers in whatever cadences I'm running currently.
makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
From your perspective, obviously, you worked in many different corporates, right? Let's compare to me. So, how have you seen the social strategy evolve over the last few years?
That's an excellent question, my man. Uh, I'll be honest, not a lot. Not a lot. Companies are still afraid to be authentic. They are
Mhm,
still afraid to use the human voice versus
mhm.
IBM corporate voice, as we mentioned at the beginning of the episode. Um, they are still afraid to really, because they think that they will piss people off.
Mhm, mhm,
They have to know people don't care.
mhm, mhm.
They just don't care, man. If you make a mistake, if you post something, as long as it's not offensive, right? So you are not
I
harming
mean, sometimes
anyone.
even offensive stuff works, right? So it depends.
Depends on who your targets are. But like generally speaking, like, okay, so since we do live in, especially when it comes to US, we do live in a world of outrage.
Mhm.
Or as Adam Curtis, the legendary documentary maker, says, "Oh, dearism." Oh,
Mhm.
dear.
Oh, dear. I never heard
you
that before, but I like that.
yeah, you just get enraged for some reason, right? This is the world we live in. So if someone wants to be an asshole, they will find something you say or something you do to be outraged by,
Mhm. Uh-huh.
right? I mean, I've seen, especially with the cancel culture, I've seen trolls digging up social media posts from 10 years ago and then calling out people, and then people have to apologize. I mean, yes, go to 2012 and I will apologize then. I'm a completely different person now. I mean, that's that's kind of my take on it. That companies are really afraid. They are really vanilla. They don't want to offend anyone. And companies that are actually real, companies that have like a human voice, again, being respectful, being completely transparent and completely human, right?
I think
Those are the ones that will thrive on social media.
I think the main difference is really about being human more than anything else, right? It's not even about, I think, the being too careful, etc. But it's the showing the more humane side of the brand, and I think it's the further fear is more not even that's more that they're too fear of committing to a specific brand voice, right? So it's very similar. I see it even in the outreach. You know, some companies want to talk about the 17 pains they solve instead of the 4-1 or 4-2, right? They're scared of leaving something on the table. And I think with the branding, it comes similarly. They're scared of being too narrow in their focus, which is eventually what works, right?
Yeah. And again, one of the things that I think most companies are doing wrong, especially when it comes to corporate, but I would say same thing with the personal branding, is actually listening to people, or since it's social media, reading what people are saying. Right? They have their own agenda. They are kind of stuck in their own heads. They're stuck in that. If you are familiar with spiral dynamics, they're stuck in their meme.
I don't know them now.
All right. Well, we'll talk about it later. But they're kind of stuck in their heads, right? Stuck in this little box that is their world, and they just don't want to venture out. We used to call it the comfort zone, but it's actually more than that. It's being able to really empathize with a person that is not you, and then getting that feedback and actually using the feedback to first grow, and then to really listen to your audience.
I think again, it's about a very hot topic in the world today anyway, is about this idea of diversity, right? Of the idea of getting different ideas and putting them into your brand. And I think what you mentioned is they are more sticking to we've done things this way and it's worked. So why try something new? Which in a place like social media, which is evolving faster than anything we've ever seen realistically. You see something like
maybe Chat GPT.
Well, yeah, sorry, yeah, actually, that's a very good point. It's a very good point. Like evolving as fast as AI, right? So I think that experimenting is never a bad thing, and they're so scared of PR scandal or issues that they're not letting it resonate.
And that's why I love Wendy's. Wendy's just, they don't care. Like they will call out, they will say like funny, Wendy's account is never disrespectful. They're just, they have swagger, right? They have showmanship. They never offended anyone, but they're just calling out people, and I enjoy the heck out of them.
But that's the thing, like there's no such thing as bad publicity, right? And obviously that's not true, because there is. But at the same time, it's more like I think the main purpose of the branding, of marketing, is to build familiarity, so that sales can have an easier job, right? Like that's the major logic is about. I mean, obviously, as a salesperson, I would say that, right? But the main logic I see is that, like, they should be working together to make the job easier. Because you're not going to close an enterprise account if you don't have some media backing, if you don't have a footprint online, right? I mean, or maybe you can, but it's going to be 10 times harder. And that's kind of the logic that the branding should have.
I mentioned GPD. One of my friends, and I have no idea if he stuck until the end of this episode. And he said, "Oh wow, we had GPT-3, and so soon we have GPT-4 with all of the advancements. When we come to GPT 666, it is end for humanity."
Yeah, that's exactly. I saw something similar by Tony, the writer of Combo Prospecting, and Tony Hughes, the Australian guy. And he was saying,
I love Tony. He's really good.
He is good. He's good. Like most of these old styles, most of the older sales gurus usually talk shit. To be honest, they talk about things that haven't existed in 20 years. But he's on it, right? I love it. And one of the things he said is, like, you shouldn't be worried about ChatGPT 3. You should be worried about ChatGPT 9, because at that point they are doing your job. And if you don't know how to do it, how to use it, then you're gonna fall behind.
Oh yeah,
and this is what I see a lot of. But anyway, we're going off track a little bit.
We needed to use the GPT to ride the GPT
wave.
wave.
To mention it today, right? It's come out yesterday. So
All right. Well, my friend, let's maybe finish up this episode with just a little bit about how to measure success. And we can just kind of use same things for corporate / company, and then personal branding. I mean, it's not that much different. But yeah, how would you measure success? What is success? We can talk a little bit about metrics, and we did mention some metrics, but we can maybe get just to kind of, because this is a whole new episode anyway. The metrics in social media or metrics anywhere, but we can just kind of scratch the surface, and then we can wrap it up.
I mean, look, I'll be honest, it's a tough one. I'm not such an experienced marketer. What I would say is the tangible, obviously. So what are you converting? How much traffic is getting redirected to your website? Something that's not that tangible is how, when the salespeople talk to customers, are these customers mentioning, "Oh yeah, I've seen your content"? These are the type of things that for me would be very strong triggers. Be like, "Oh yeah, you guys are all over the media." Right. Okay. That's what I want to talk about. Right. So that's the type of thing that I think should be looked at as success, right? But overall, it's about conversion. It's about how much traffic you're getting, how many demos are you getting booked in, like tangible KPIs.
I think, for corporate, it could be exposure. So are people looking at your brand? Are they familiar with the brand? I think Dan Kennedy, one of the legendary copywriters, said the one is the loneliest number, right? So the more you are present all over, as you said, I wouldn't say the job of the salesperson will be easier. It's just going to be a little bit more simple.
Of course. No, absolutely.
Because it's never easy. But it can be a little bit more simpler, right? So, and for your personal brand, I would say for the metrics, it really depends on what you want to achieve, right?
Exactly.
And that are the metrics that if you want a wide audience, then you write content that attracts a wide audience, right? Or a lot of people. If you want to cater to specific audience, then your content needs to be specific. So it really depends on what you want to achieve, I would say, right? Like, what is your end goal there? So
100%. I mean, look, you see the people that sell on LinkedIn with their personal brand, like Justin Welsh types, of course, that then it makes sense. And you see the people that are just doing it because they want to build an audience to maybe later monetize it. I think at the end of the day, it's more about the genuine engagement you develop rather than how many views. Because if you want to write views, you can write a cry story or a success story, and you're gonna get likes and attention. But really, like, it's about the genuine engagement, I think.
Yeah. I know. I agree, man. All right. Any last comments? Any last words
I
for
think
this
that
episode?
Just to sum up, I think that the crucial takeaway is, authenticity, to just build this voice of the brand that people can recognize, like Wendy's, like Sales Loft, and just be like, oh wow, that's these guys, and then I think it makes a lot easier for any further step to come, basically.
For me, it's the humanization of companies' pages. No one, as we said, selling it's always been, I don't know for how long, but at least for now, it's human to human. It's not LinkedIn page to LinkedIn page.
No,
right?
And I don't think you'll ever be.
So if you're sounding like a LinkedIn page, then, but if you're sounding like a human, it's going to get you a little bit closer to your potential client base, to your, as they say, total serviceable market, to the companies that you're actually trying to sell into. And maybe you will actually get inbound from that LinkedIn post.
Exactly. I agree.
All right. Well, everyone, thanks for sticking by us to the episode 3. Episode 4, we have a guest, right, Julia? Do you wanna? Oh no, we will tease him during the week.
We will tease him. But don't forget to subscribe.
Yep. Don't forget to subscribe. Connect with us on LinkedIn. In the description of the episode, you have both of our links to LinkedIn, and happy selling, people.
Indeed.